Welcome to our historical journey. Today, we delve into a significant chapter of human history, the Spanish flu pandemic. It was an event that changed the world, challenged our resilience, and taught us invaluable lessons about public health. But before we start, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and press the notification bell. This way, you won't miss any future content from us. Now let's take a step back in time to 1918, a world at war, where an unseen enemy was about to strike. Prepare yourself for the chilling tale of the Spanish flu. Imagine a world at war, only to be blindsided by an unseen enemy. This was the reality of 1918 when the Spanish flu first reared its deadly head. March of that year saw the initial outbreak, with the first identified cases cropping up among US military personnel. Soldiers huddled together in close quarters became the perfect breeding ground for the virus. The symptoms seemed like a regular flu at first, fever, fatigue, and body aches. But as the disease progressed, it became clear that this was no ordinary influenza. It was far more lethal, with patients often succumbing within days of the onset of symptoms. As World War I raged on, the virus found an easy passage across borders. Troop movements and mass gatherings became unwitting vehicles for the disease, facilitating its rapid and deadly spread. As the world was grappling with the harsh realities of war, a new and invisible enemy had begun to spread its terror. Just when the world thought it had seen the worst, the Spanish flu was ready to strike again. As the summer of 1918 faded into autumn, a second, far more lethal wave of the pandemic emerged. The virus, having mutated into a much deadlier strain, was about to show its full destructive potential. This second wave was not confined to the trenches of Europe, where the first wave had largely struck. It spread like wildfire across the globe, reaching the most remote corners of the world. Even the isolated Pacific islands were not spared, and the virus made its chilling presence felt as far north as the Arctic. The speed and reach of the second wave were truly staggering. In just a few months, the Spanish flu had infected millions. But it wasn't just the rapid spread of the virus that shocked the world. It was the sheer lethality of this second wave. The Spanish flu was no longer just a severe illness. It had become a death sentence. The impact on society was profound. Cities were turned into ghost towns as people stayed indoors, fearful of the invisible enemy. Hospitals were overwhelmed with patients, and a sense of helplessness pervaded as doctors and nurses, despite their best efforts, could do little to halt the onslaught of the virus. The high mortality rate was particularly devastating. Young, healthy individuals, usually in the prime of their life, were suddenly falling victim to the virus. It was a stark contrast to the typical flu, which usually posed the greatest risk to the very young and the very old. The Spanish flu was indiscriminate, cutting a swathe through all segments of society. The second wave of the Spanish flu was a grim reminder of how quickly and devastatingly a disease can spread. In its wake, it left not only a staggering number of deaths, but also a society deeply scarred by loss and fear. It was a testament to the destructive power of a pandemic, forever etching the autumn of 1918 into history as a time of death and despair. The second wave was a grim reminder of how quickly and devastatingly a disease can spread, leaving in its wake a trail of death and despair. As suddenly as it had arrived, the Spanish flu began to fade. It was in the summer of 1919, a time when the world was still reeling from the horrors of the World War, that the pandemic finally began to lose its grip. The number of cases started to drop dramatically, and hope began to bloom in the hearts of the people. What was behind this sudden shift? It was a phenomenon known as herd immunity. As more and more people were exposed to the virus and survived, they developed immunity. This meant that the virus had fewer hosts to infect, and so it gradually petered out. But the end of the pandemic was not a cause for unmitigated celebration. The Spanish flu had taken a heavy toll on the global population. The estimated death toll was staggering, with some estimates suggesting that tens of millions of lives were lost. The aftermath of the pandemic was also profound. It left long-term effects on the survivors and caused a significant demographic shift. Many communities were left grieving and struggling to rebuild. The Spanish flu, despite its devastation, taught the world valuable lessons about public health and the importance of global cooperation in times of crisis. It served as a stark reminder of our shared humanity and vulnerability. In just over a year, the Spanish flu had claimed millions of lives, leaving an indelible mark on human history. The Spanish flu was a harsh lesson in the power of disease, but it also taught us valuable lessons. Firstly, the Spanish flu underscored the importance of robust public health measures. The rapid spread of the virus was fueled by the absence of effective containment strategies, a mistake that we strive not to repeat today. It showed us that public health is not just a local concern, but a global one. Quarantines, isolation, and hygiene practices are not just individual responsibilities, but collective ones, and they can mean the difference between containment and catastrophe. Secondly, it emphasized the need for relentless medical research. The Spanish flu was a mystery in its time, with scientists struggling to understand its nature and origins. Today, this experience motivates us to stay ahead of the curve, constantly researching, innovating, and preparing for the next potential health crisis. Lastly, the Spanish flu highlighted the necessity of global cooperation in fighting pandemics. In a world that's more interconnected than ever, a health crisis in one corner of the globe can swiftly become a worldwide issue. The Spanish flu drove home the point that we must work together, share information, and collaborate on solutions to effectively combat such threats. Though it was a tragedy of unimaginable scale, the Spanish flu left us with valuable insights into handling pandemics, lessons that continue to guide us even today.